I would like to call upon the following ladies and a gentleman to the stage as we begin the panel discussion. Naz Khan, the moderator of the panel, is here from IFC. As mentioned earlier, she is the principal country officer of IFC Pakistan. She has occupied the position of board member for various corporates, including Pakistan Stock Exchange as well. For the panelists, I would call upon Faiza Yusuf. Faiza is a software engineer with 13 years of experience building tech products and teams. She's a serial founder with initiatives focusing on women's financial inclusion and improving gender parity in tech. She founded Women in Tech PK and co-founded Code Girls and Caterpillars. I will call upon Sharjeel Murtaza of Karandaz to take part in the panel and shed light on the startup ecosystem with reference to women's participation in the business space. Sharjeel is a director for digital financial services at Karandaz. I also invite Naila Naqvi on stage. Naila is an accomplished entrepreneur and, as mentioned earlier, heads Pie in the Sky as founder and CEO. Over to you, Naz.
All right. Welcome to all of you, Naila, Sharjeel, and Faiza. Thank you for that, Raida. And Nadia, that was a very inspiring talk. And you mentioned the stock exchanges and getting women to invest. And Dr. Shamshad, I don't see her here, but it would be wonderful to see how many of our investors are actually women and how many are men. I don't know if we track that metric yet, but that's a metric we should definitely track. Sorry? So I think, so welcome to all the panelists. I'm going to go a little off script, by the way, ek kursi aur dal de, since the discussion is about the classroom to the boardroom. So I'm going to call Sabah Kamal up here, who is completely shocked and surprised right now. But if you can just put one more chair up there. Sabah, please join us. So that we have, we have Faiza, who's from the classroom, and we have the boardroom, and we have everything else in between, right here. So just a quick introduction on Sabah as well. Sabah has been in on the technology side, but she's been an IBMer for at least most of her life or forever. She I know now currently sits on the board of HPL. She's on the board of IBA and also on the board of Packages. Right. So welcome, Sabah, on board. Let me start with Faiza, because we're talking about the classroom. You're someone who's a software engineer. You're someone who has worked with women. You've done coding. You've launched. You're like a tech entrepreneur. So just tell us a little bit about why did you end up getting into this side, and what do you find if there's a general view for women that they can't be in STEM? How do you find when you're training women? How do they absorb? Are they good students? Not? Just tell us a little bit.
So how I got into tech, because I was a nerd, as simple as that. Me working in tech or working for women came naturally because I saw that tech changed my life. I'm a neurodiverse person. So tech has been really helpful in terms of me getting my education and a lot of other things. So I knew that it has the potential to change more lives. When it comes to women getting into or not getting into tech, there's a thing called unconscious bias, and people have it against women, that women can't be technical enough or they can't be good in engineering, which is not true. The reason being that when we take women, so at Code Girls, what we do is that we take women from a non-traditional background. So someone who has done a BCom, someone who has done a BA, someone who has done a BS in mathematics, for example, or something that is completely unrelated to tech. And when we train them how to code, we see that they pick it way quicker than anyone else, because they apply themselves fully because they understand the importance of the opportunity that they have received. B, a lot of these women, when they want to learn how to code, they want to prove themselves. So there is another aspect of that emotional energy being invested into the whole process of learning. And then another important aspect is because I work with a lot of women that are from lower middle class families, so the household income is below 50,000 rupees a month. So when these women graduate from the program and they go to the industry, so the first job is around 50,000 rupees, right, for an entry level coder or programmer, and that changes the whole dynamic of the family. So the family that was making less than 50,000 a month, it suddenly the income doubles, and for them to be able to do that for their families and for them to have that say in the decision making of the household, that's the life changing thing that we have seen when it comes to Code Girls. And so far we have trained nearly 1,000 women, and we have made sure that over 300 of them are actually right now working in the tech industry.
Great. And I'm going to come back to you on some of your initiatives. I'm going to go straight from the classroom to the boardroom. Sorry, Sabha, for putting you on the spot.
You are.
But when it goes from the classroom, I mean, and we've heard some of the statistics, but when you get to the boardroom, so obviously the number of women on the boardrooms are far less. And then particularly in the space that you are, you're in a very interesting spot because you're typically an independent director, you're a female, and you know the tech side. So you tick a lot of boxes, right? So what do you find when you're sitting in boardrooms? How do you find the dynamic when it comes to women on board, and especially a woman who knows the technology side?
So before I speak about boards, I actually recently moved back from Dubai, and one of the most common statements that I used to hear around me is, "I am not technical," and it is my mission for people to stop saying that. Okay, you can order pizza without being technical. You can book an airline ticket without being technical. So I actually went up to PICG and I said, you need to include some element of technology in your director training program. And I see that Mimosh has probably just stepped out because it's the umpteenth time that I'm trying to get people to introduce technology, the governance of technology into the director training program. So coming back to your question, so I feel actually very privileged, the female part, of course, is there, but people think that I am a huge expert only because I come from technology.
And we want to let them continue to think that, right?
Yeah, but sometimes I feel, okay, I mean, I'm not. I mean, people like Faiza, they are the experts. What I really just try to bring into the board is the business use of technology. And, it's so pervasive. If you look at the top companies worldwide, the top 10 companies, I think 8 are in technology. I mean, technology is pervasive. So my message as a board member, be it a female or male, is that adopt technology. Please, let's not hear this bit, "I am not technical anymore."
Great, thank you. That's wonderful. Naila, let me come to you. So, when I was reading the profile, it spoke about, someone who didn't know what they wanted to do and kind of stumbled upon this, to someone who is hugely successful, who's, eats we all enjoy, to someone who's gone from setting up a business to, being digitally online. So, how did you stumble upon this?
Stumble upon the business?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually, I've done my hotel management. So I worked at Hawaii Towers for almost 10 years. When I got married, actually, it was my husband who actually suggested that I start the business. So I had my husband's support, from day one. And he was also my chief financer, which I haven't had to pay the loan back yet. So, I've been lucky in that.
It's been accruing, so you have no idea what bill you're going to get at the end.
But, and it's just grown from there. It's grown from there. And, recently, so we've gone, we've launched our own app. We've, gone online, digital, so it's sort of been a for me, maybe because I've been in business 22 years, I should have, approached the digital side of it earlier.
But what prompted you? What all of a sudden made you realize, you know what, I need to move digital?
Well, after 22 years, it was like, I'm not technical. So, so it was like, but now I think, you need to get to that stage. You need to realize that, even if you surround yourself with people, with good people who know what they're doing, they'll teach you. or they'll give you the confidence to say, okay, now I'm at that stage where I can do it. And so we did, So it's been, it's brought a great, it's business growth because, people sitting at home without having to leave their homes, they can sort of get on the app, they order online, your sort of transaction time is like literally a minute and 30 seconds and they've already ordered. They can go through your whole menu. It just made it much easier for people to access pie in the sky.
And how much of your sales are online and how much are physical?
Right now, physical is definitely
larger.
More, yeah, much larger. Online is still, I don't know, maybe people, I think it will grow. I think, our app is still relatively new. So I think it will grow, but right now it's still definitely our sort of brick and mortar shops do better.
Right. Yeah. So thank you, Naila. So Sharjeel, you've, Dr. Shamshad mentioned some fantastic initiatives on financial inclusion. How do you see this side growing? You've taken some incredible initiatives. Are they moving the needle? Are they small, or do we need to do much more?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me here, and happy Women's Day to all the fantastic ladies around here. A big thank you from the core of my heart. You truly make the world go round, so that's the first thing. To your question, yes, the fact is there is a lot more to be done. Karandas as an entity is one of the key flag bearers for financial inclusion for women. We have been doing a lot in this space for the last 7 to 8 years. However, as Dr. Shamshad also mentioned, we need more partners. This is a huge space. There is a lot of need for access to finance for the women's segment. As just one of my panel members here mentioned, our value system and family system really helps where we have, supportive husbands or siblings or parents. However, the ecosystem needs to be such where these dependencies should not be there. The financial ecosystem should be an enabler, and that's the mission that Karandas is actually following. We actually have multiple work streams tackling the financial inclusion space. We have very dedicated ventures. One of them, you will find some more detail on it on our website, which is called the Women Ventures, where we are actually supporting only women-led businesses. And it's any type of business. It could be a furniture business, it could be a clothing business, it could be a tech business, it could be a very high-tech engineering business, whatever it takes. So that stream is fully dedicated to, removing the hurdle of financial inclusion for women. Similarly, we have other work streams like Innovation Challenge Fund or Financial Inclusion for Women Challenge Funds, where we are not necessarily focusing on women-led businesses, but our key focus is to enable or to introduce such innovation in the ecosystem where women can have easy access or equal access to financial products and solutions. That is the space where we need to work a lot more. We need to have more entities, for profit, not for profit, whatever it takes. We need to have more of that in that space coming through. So yeah, the core answer to your question is progress is there. Some substantial progress is there. If you look at the recent surveys by Findex or even the Karandas Financial Inclusion Survey, you will see that there is an overall increase of 9% financial inclusion in Pakistan. Out of that, it's approximately 6 to 7% increase in terms of financial inclusion for women as well, which is great. However, we still remain at 145th out of 146 for the gap angle. So,
and that's abysmal, right? So
absolutely.
Even if I look at the digital, one of the basic things is owning a phone, right? So do we have any stats on how many women own phones, or how many are? Because from what I understand, that's also a mindset. Many women are not allowed to own phones because it gives them the freedom and the flexibility and access to reach the outer world. Like Nadia mentioned about the Wi-Fi not being in the Zanana. So any thoughts on that? Anyone?
Again, smartphone penetration, I think, is around 20%. So I was working with IBA for a USAID AID program, and I was in Quetta. and where we saw that we had to onboard women on Facebook in a lot of different platforms, and I actually had to go and take permission from the men in their families that can I open an account for them on Facebook, and most of them told me that they cannot do it with their own names, so they had to use the children's name or men's name in the family. Another interesting thing is that because I mentioned that we work with women from lower income families at Code Girls, so the main issue that we experience is infrastructure. So a lot of these women do not own a computer, and we are teaching them how to code. So if they don't own a computer, again, they can't do anything when they're home. We do provide infrastructure support in terms of giving the top candidates a new laptop and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, majority of them do not have it. And if there is a computer at the house, they cannot use it without the permission of whoever, the male in the household is. And they can only use it under supervision of a man. So that hindrances the progress, and they are unable to learn, of course. We are trying to kind of help them find other ways to, come to Code Girls when there are no classes happening, to access the internet and do things like that. But at the end of the day, access is a huge issue, even in Karachi, a city like Karachi, because there are a lot of areas where internet penetration is not that good. So for them also, it's a huge problem.
No, thank you for that. So, which means that one of the basic building blocks of inclusion is actually that item itself, and maybe there's some work that needs to be done to break down any barriers on owning a phone, right?
So I would just like to make a comment on this. Absolutely right. The access to connectivity is absolutely essential. However, I think we need to differentiate between access to connectivity and access to a smartphone. I, for one, as the director for digital financial services at Karandaz, I'm trying very hard to shift the focus from the gap in access to smartphone. It is actually not essential. We tend to get bogged down by this concept that the tech has to be the latest and the greatest. Not always. For financial inclusion or access to finance perspective, you do not need to have every solution which requires a smartphone. There's this good old technology which can be used over a feature phone as well. We know that access is already way more than the access to a smartphone. Why not focus on tech which enables all these women, and even men for that matter, who cannot use a smartphone or who cannot actually afford a smartphone? Because then we are putting too much onus on the entire chain, that first of all, put the connectivity out there, then how do you make sure that the bottom of the pyramid segment actually can afford a smartphone? And if they don't, you've failed again. So latest and greatest, slickest of technologies is not always necessary. But yes, if you have to be a coder, you obviously need a computer. So that's a problem that needs to be tackled.
Right. So I was reading the UN theme for this time for digital, and one of the interesting things is when you look at this accessibility. So first of all, it was women not being allowed out of the homes because there were public spaces, right? And you were afraid to send women out in public spaces, exposure, etc. You actually have the same concept now on the digital side as well, because that's a very, very public space. So when you have women stepping out and having access to that space, which is now, in fact, far more public than a physical space, so some of those same ideas kind of come over there. And I thought that was a really interesting thought. And that's why you feel like you need to put the protections in place. Because it's too much open access. Naila, any thoughts on that?
In certain ways, so the world has just opened up, you can sort of, my children study abroad. So, for me to access them now through technology or anything is so much easier, anytime I want to, I'm missing my son, I send him a message in like 30 seconds, I have a reply. So it's fantastic to have that. But at the same time, I think, I never thought of it that way, that the digital world is actually more public than, a woman stepping out of her home. And I find that, in my field, it's like, the online critics or the sort of the food bloggers, they can either make you or break you, so it can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, so it comes with its ups and its downs. It has a lot of pitfalls and it has a lot of advantages as well. So I guess it's how you use them.
Sabha, any thoughts?
I'm just going to go a little off script now because I was reminded of this. So a few years ago, IBM actually had an event on STEM for girls. And I was based in Dubai, but I was invited. This was in Islamabad for girls from 8 to 14. And we invited the head of IBM Turkey, who was a lady, and this very senior executive from South Africa. And we actually had a competition on groups of these girls, identifying what would make a smart home. And to cut a long story short, the quality of the presentations was amazing. And this lady from Turkey and the lady from South Africa said that what these young girls from 8 to 14 are saying is what we'd expect college-going kids to be presenting to us. So my view is that in spite of the government's apathy, the lack of steps, thank God for a smart population. Thank God for a smart female population. Thank God for initiatives like the kind Pfizer is doing to bring those out. So I'm quite optimistic that we will have an educated, STEM-inspired female workforce. Sorry, that was completely opposite.
Right. Sorry, any thoughts, Faiza? So just, I'm conscious of time, so just some, parting thoughts on if we have to get more women from the classroom to the boardroom, how do we do that?
So organizations need to step up because diversity does have a business objective and a business case for it. And for that, leadership programs within the organization, making sure that your workforce is trained on unconscious bias, making sure that you have the right policies in place for women, and not just equal policies, but policies that direct towards equity. So you need to have gender-sensitive policies in the workplace. And then, of course, when it comes to women in leadership positions, we do see that women bring a lot of psychological safety in the workplace. They also bring a lot of innovation in the workplace. They also bring a different perspective towards things in the workplace. And when we are building businesses, software, services, whatever you may do, at the end of the day, your consumer, half of your consumers, will be women. So you are not building your products or businesses or services in a void. You're not building them for men, you're building them for everyone. So the people who are building those products and services and businesses, the team should also have that diversity in it. And when we talk about, women, another important aspect is because we know that a lot of us have to prove ourselves twice as hard. So a lot of them are, I would say, way smarter than our male counterparts in terms of making our position in the workplace. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Pfizer summed it up so well. I have to say I was deeply disappointed to hear the statistics that Dr. Shamshad presented about the female inclusion in boards. I mean, we really, really need to do something to address it. It's my personal view that I think in the financial sector, we have fairly good representation of females, also getting there in the private sector and all. So again, I'm going to reiterate that let's embrace technology, let's focus on STEM, and that's what the world today demands, and that's the way to go from classroom to boardroom.
Absolutely. Cannot assert more that more organizations need to step up. However, I'm really proud of the fact, and I would like to share this very quickly here. So at Karandas, because we are the flag bearers, or we think so that we are the flag bearers of women financial inclusion, how is our setup? Our board is 35%, represented by women and led by the very distinguished Dr. Shamshad herself. The management committee, which is the second tier of the organization, 50% is represented by women. The work stream or the business unit that I head, which is digital financial services, absolutely tech-centric domain, 40% of my team is women. HR is pretty much 100% women. So look, it really comes down to each and every organization. Everybody needs to open up. There is absolutely no doubt. I'm a technologist from a background perspective. there's absolutely no doubt. There's a lot of research out there which has proven that if there is a gender diverse team building a piece of software, they have done actual testing with the male-dominated team versus an equally represented team. The results in terms of quality of the software are far superior when there's a diverse team working on it. Same goes for the quality assurance regime of the technology building regime. It is far superior when there are more women involved. UI, UX, I cannot, so many evidence are out there. When a UI, UX exercise is led by a woman, the results are phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, everybody's got to accept that. They should be open about that, and it can only add more and more value to each of the organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharjila, and we hope to have more allies like yourself, male allies like yourself.
Okay, I'm not sure what I can add because they've sort of summed it up really well. But all I can say is, like at Pie in the Sky, is what we have tried to do is, for the first few years of the business, it was me and over 300 men. There was me at the top, and then 300 men. But over the past years, we've sort of included women in all our departments. We have women in our production areas. We have women in quality assurance. We have women in, in fact, in our call center, in our digital marketing, everywhere. So we've tried to, in our own little bubble, try to include women and support them and send them for trainings as much as we can. But I would, love to have more feedback from anybody here who can partner with us at any stage to maybe help train our women, to be more digitally, competent or savvy, yeah, whatever you want to call it, and sort of, yeah, that's it.
So that you don't ever say that
I'm not technical,
right?
Yeah.
So thank you all for that. That was wonderful to hear your thoughts on this, and I think technology, we all know, is a real sort of equalizer. And within companies, if there's one department, where actually you can take so many more women, is actually on the tech side. Which is now becoming an extremely important department for most companies. You need CTOs, you need CIOs. So it's not just HR departments. So, because people complain that you can't have them in the plants, you can't have them here, but technology is one area. So we hope to see more and more women, because those are the women that can actually rise to then positions of leadership positions within the company, and eventually in the board. And of course, financial inclusion, it's a great enabler for everyone. So we look forward to all of you doing all your good work to enable the women of Pakistan.